Hi, folks. Welcome back to That Hashtag Show. My name's Tom, your resident Ranger writer. And if you notice with me today, I have a very familiar face. You might have seen him in certain productions as Robo Toy Fest, Sack Toy Con, Toy Wizards. I know he's got something to do with that. And then he was also on this little TV show called The Toys That Made Us. More importantly, this is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Scott Zillner, the creator of Power Morphicon. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me on board.
Well, like I said, as I just ran down, Scott is a man of many talents. He's done a lot of stuff, but it really all got started, I believe, back just with toys when you were a kid, correct?
Getting interested in this genre?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was, I'm a child product of the 80s. Absolutely, 120% there.
So what was your first show that you actually were the guy for?
I mean, like as a kid or as an adult?
Both. What was your first one that you went to as a kid, and then again as an adult, as you were, one of the behind the scenes guys, the main, guy?
I mean, I started going to conventions when I was like 13, 14. I did my first convention like when I was 15. I couldn't even drive.
Wow.
And I just, like back then, you have your mom drop you off, a couple boxes of toys and comics. You'd set up for the day and then hope you had money left over to like call her on a payphone and say, pick me up, and then take everything out to the street and just sit there and wait for a car to pick you up.
Now, back then, what kind of toys or whatnot did you have on your table?
That part really hasn't changed a whole lot, at least for me. Like, I still deal in stuff that I like. It's actually a very poor business model. But it's stuff that I like to carry. I like to carry certain comics. I like to carry certain toys. And that's the kind of stuff that I always buy and sell or might have at my booth because that's what I love and enjoy. And I could certainly make more money selling Funko Pops to people, but that's not what I want. So therefore, I kind of only really buy and sell stuff that I like.
Now, as things have gone on and continued, you got into the Power Rangers culture.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've definitely become one of the figureheads for Power Rangers in the community. I started off by going to Power Morphicon in 2007, and then inheriting the show in 2008, and then running it every other year starting in 2010, which is now our 10th anniversary, with no show next week, where we don't have the convention this year. So it will be next year. Will be the 11 years for doing Morphicon for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's unbelievable. So yeah, like I was saying, this is going to be one of my first actual Power Morphicons. Finally get the chance to be out there and to do all this. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, we're really hoping that with the small delay of not having a show in 2020, 2021 will be a really big event, and we can do a lot of exciting stuff for the fans.
Yeah, I remember, what was it, last Power Morphicon, there was the Angel Grove High School prom from that hashtag show.
That was something, definitely.
So going back into the whole toy thing, you have collected all kinds of stuff. I mean, we can see your phenomenal collection of just books and various paraphernalia.
This is my office, so that's like one of my reference libraries. Like as a graphic artist and as a painter in the toy industry, I do need to have a lot of reference material. And sometimes, as good as it is, and it's really fantastic to have, so many images at your beck and call on the computer, you do sometimes have to go back to a book to get a certain image or to look at something very closely.
I know you have one very near dear particular piece that you've done in your history, and for me in our house, when I first showed my wife, it's your Stitch, your specific Tron Stitch. She goes every time.
Yeah, the Tron Stitch was a real interesting art piece because I was part of the Stitch 626 project at Disney's D23 convention. So I was one of many artists that all did their own custom vinyl to be Tron or to be a Stitch and whatever we wanted to do with it. And I had picked my Stitch up and was driving back to my house to, and they called me up and are like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have given that to you. You need to bring it back. And I'm like, oh, I'm so far gone now. There's no way for me to turn back around. Like I really had this project idea in my head. I wanted to do it so bad. And they're like, well, you just can't be late. Like they were really on the edge of having me or not having me do that project. I did it and gave it to them, and then I came into the show like on the second day or something like that, and I'm like, oh man, did they like it? Do they, there's so many other cool Stitches, and they come up and like, Scott, how are you, buddy? It's so good to see you. And I was like overblown by the response, and that's because Disney had come down, looked at the exhibit, and picked out a couple to be made into production pieces. They liked them so much. One was like a Hawaiian one by an actual Disney artist, and two was me for the Tron Stitch. So I got picked out of all these other artists to be a production piece by the advice of Disney. So that was my first real Disney project there too. So that was kind of neat.
What was it like finally holding that first one off the production line? And
well, I mean, I got to go to the office and pick them up from the warehouse, and like part of my deal was like they don't really pay you, so you like, oh well, you can buy some at cost. So like I bought like a pallet. Like I was so happy to have these. I had a huge amount of them for a long time, and that was kind of like my payoff was like I got to have like boxes of them all over the house forever. Now I'm down to one. I only have one, and people ask me for it all the time, and I'm just like, good luck, because it's a son of a bitch to get.
Yeah, I've tried finding it before for our household. It's like, nah, that's nice.
One time I did buy one off of somebody online, and they were like, hey, I'm sending it to you now, but is that your name on the box? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm buying it from you because I can't find it.
So what, with everything going on in the toys and, getting the conventions and everything, you've had some really memorable moments. Like, you've got a chance to meet, what was that Jedi guy's name?
Mark Hamill. I was on the Mark Hamill show that was on the Comic-Con HQ.
Yep.
I'm not sure where it's at now.
I think it's floating
around. What's that?
I think it's floating around on YouTube now.
I think there's a way you can like purchase it through Amazon Prime. But yeah, the Mark Hamill's, comic collectible show where he went around to talk toys, and I got to be on episode 2 of that.
Yep.
And what's great to know is that Mark is not faking that. He really does love toys. He's passionate about the stuff. And me and Mark were so good on camera. Like, we're just so, jazz was going on, just talking about Godzilla and stuff. Like, the producer's like, okay, guys, we're done. We're done. You need to stop it. Guys, he had to literally just pick Mark out of the chair because we wouldn't stop talking about toys. So it was really good to be on that show, and it's a fantastic time.
And then, show after that, the next show, I believe, was Toys That Made Us.
Yeah, and then I got to be on the Toys That Made Us as for one of the Power Ranger people, and luckily they liked my performance on screen and then called me back to do some more notes. So then I kind of became the guy for that episode with a lot of explanations. When you needed an explanation, I was that post-it note. Like, oh, let's just put Scott here, and he'll fill those gaps we need,
It really was.
So that worked out great.
It really was a great episode to watch. It really made me feel a lot of pride in our Power Ranger fandom. Now, speaking of everything, you got your Power Morphicon shirt on there. So what was it like when you took over the reins in 2008? What were some of your big, what do I need to do versus where you are now at the, obviously we've had a hiccup this year, but, does it still go as smooth?
Every year has been nothing but hiccups. running Power Morphicon is like putting out fires in a firework factory. Everything's always on fire, and you're constantly trying to put something out. And you're like, well, we fixed that for this year, and then next year something else is on fire. Well, we fixed those things. They'll never catch on fire. And then something new is on fire, and then something old caught on fire again. You're just like, what's going on? Like it's really juggling elephants holding chainsaws. It's a difficult thing behind the scenes to make a party for the fans to have a fun time. And if they don't see the fires, then we did a good job with our circus.
Now, amidst all the little fires and elephants with chainsaws and koalas with, maces, what have been some of your highlights of the conventions?
All of the conventions are great because it brings the fan base into one spot for one time of the year where everybody likes the same stuff that you do. Every person at that convention, except for maybe like Daniel's mom, really loves Power Rangers. And even Daniel's mom's okay with it because she's there to make sure Dan has a good time. So it's really interesting how that works, where you may go to another convention and like you may hear the Mighty Morphin sound on somebody's phone and go, hey, that guy's a fan.
My person, yeah.
At that convention, everybody's ringtone is set up that way. Everybody's a fan. Everybody loves it as much as you do. You get to meet the cast, the crew, hear incredible stories, meet your heroes, and have a good time. And that's why we put on the show.
That's fantastic. What was it like doing recently? You did Japan World Heroes last year, correct?
Yeah, Japan World Heroes is like my pet project, where if you guys love Power Morphicon and you love Power Rangers, well, that's just the tip of an iceberg for the extended world of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai and Metal Heroes and everything Tokusatsu has to give you enjoyment, like Ultraman and Godzilla. And, there's so many other shows out there that are just as exciting and sometimes even more fun than what you know. And so the whole point of Japan World Heroes is to try to expose more people to that incredible backlog of Japanese culture that's out there. And you'll leave that show going, you know what? I'm a Kamen Rider fan now too. Like, if I can just convert a couple people every year to more of the extended world of Tokusatsu, I've done my job and I've done my responsibility to the Japanese shows and Japanese culture.
Now, what's it like when you're doing the conventions and trying to get the foreign actors, whether from Japan or even the New Zealand actors from Power Rangers over here to the States? What hiccups do you, or bumps are along that way?
With the Japan actors, you have to go through a couple agents, and they have to find those people, and they have to give them a presentation and a letter of intent, like, hey, we would like you to come out to this event on this day. And then they would be very polite and go, well, I'm working all of next year, and so you have to kind of treat them a little bit to try to like, look, these people really want to meet you. No, they don't want to meet me. I'm nobody. I did a show 20 years ago. I now run a fruit stand. And it can be a little difficult, but that's why we have people in Japan. We run with agents that do a lot of that work to bring them over. The New Zealand actors are a little easier. Generally, they want to come over here. They come over here a lot, and they want to come back and meet people that they haven't seen for a while, or see the fans that, as being in New Zealand, they're maybe not used to seeing so many people. And generally, once they come over, they have such a great time. They're like, hey, when can we come back? So it's always been very good.
So speaking of guests and whatnot, and do you have any guests that you're really, really hoping one day that you can get for any convention that you have? Who's your white whale?
We're always working on those guests and the fan requests for stuff. We certainly can't get to everybody. There is only so much of a budget for flying people in and their handlers and then their agents and then their kids sometimes. Like, it gets really expensive, so that's why the quantity is always kind of small. But we're always trying to get people out there that people want, and what we can do to make that surprise the best thing that we can do. We do have stuff in the works, and I really hope for 2021 that we can get a couple of those very requested Japanese actors out here, and we'll just wait and see. I mean, I can't give out any spoilers.
Not yet. Speaking of spoilers, has there ever been an actor that jumped right on board right at jump when you've been planning all these and you've had to want to keep it quiet and they're like one of the last actors that you announce?
No, I mean, we kind of do that on an actor by actor basis. So like once we have the stuff signed and we're ready to go, we're good to announce them. Sometimes they will just announce themselves, and hey, P.T. Barnum rule, any publicity is good publicity, so I don't sweat it too much.
Cool. Now, going back to your toys real quick, I did say that, what is your most prized possession in your collection, aside from Tron Stitch? At this point, it varies.
That's really hard because I'm a multi-level collector. So I'm not just collecting one specific group of toys like some people do. I collect just massive amounts of everything. So like my top toys that I really enjoy, I worked for years to get a complete Superpowers collection. I'm very happy with that. Micronauts are always on my list. Shogun Warriors, G.I. Joe. Those are my top stuff, and I'm always collecting those. And then I also collect arcade games, vintage video game consoles. There's a lot of stuff. It's a big, long list. And then we start to get into like my Japanese toy obsession, and there's a whole nother list of stuff. One thing I'm really passionate about is like Micronaut magnet figures. And that collection took me something like 25 years to get the figures I want. I'm still missing a couple, like then when you get to that point, you're like, oh, I got everything. Oh, did you get that Italian version or this rare Japanese white one? I'm like, oh, son of a. So they never really ends with some collections, and other collections can be small enough. You're like, hey, it's done. I'm good. I got all of the superpower figures. And they're like, what about the Brazilian ones? You're like, so you just do what you can. I always tell people to buy what makes you happy. And if it doesn't make you happy, get rid of it. Buy something else.
That's a very good point. So let's see. You really just hit on everything. This is fantastic. This is one of the easiest interviews I've done ever. So tell me about Toy Wizards. You just recently started that up about a year and a half ago, or?
We started January of last year. Yeah. So this is we're working on our sophomore year now. We're over halfway through, and every month gets better and better. We definitely become one of the hubs for toy news and toy-related content. And me and my partner, Lauren Stone, work hard on that every day to make sure we're posting videos, we're posting articles. We've got like a plethora of social media channels for it. Yep. And we've been doing really good, and the people are really coming around to enjoying the site and using it as a bookmark reference for toys. So that's a great feeling.
It is. It really is. Even I sometimes have to reference it myself and go, oh, did I miss a memo? Apparently I did. Well, Scott, I want to say thank you so very much. I appreciate you taking the time here today to talk with me and let us know everything that's going on with you in the world, and fill us in on Power Morphicon. I can only imagine how it feels right now, thinking that in just a few days we should have all been together. But that makes it, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and we're looking forward to seeing you next year.
I feel the pain. I really wish we didn't have a COVID and we would have a Morphicon, and we just got to push towards having a really good show next year for everybody.
I think that's inevitable. Now, where can everybody find you on social media? Like you said, your social media presence is all over.
I'm pretty easy. I'm Scott Zillner at Facebook and on Instagram, and I even have a Twitter that I never post on. And then you can catch me and Lauren Stone on toy-wizards.com and Toy Wizards on Instagram and Facebook.
And I can tell you firsthand, folks, this gentleman right here probably takes some of the best exuberant selfies ever. See, look.
It's mostly the mustache.
It's all the mustache. I actually just had to get rid of all my facial hair per the boss's request.
Ooh.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. So thank you so very much, folks, for hanging out with us today. We always appreciate it. Make sure to stay tuned to that hashtag show for everything trending in geek pop culture.